All right, number 2, resume. Again, I like to zoom out, kind of see the overall use of the page. I kind of see like this big empty gap up here on the page, a little bit more empty space down here in the bottom right corner of the page. But generally, it's going to be pretty easy to kind of read through this. I can see the skills block and they're kind of laying things out, a little bit of experience, a little bit of project work, and extracurricular stuff as well. So appreciate the anonymity where they've blocked some stuff out. Let's go read up the notes on this one. Says, hi, I'm Zane. I'm cleaning out my resume so I can apply for new grad software engineer roles. I personally like more back-end positions, and I don't have a preference for company or industry. Your last resume review helped me land an internship. Hey, sweet, over at Oracle. Oh, I'm Extreme Dude. Hey, Extreme Dude, this is your resume. And I'm eager to hear your criticism. Well, it's not going to be criticism. I hope it comes across as supportive. But cool. So this is Extreme Dude. So the first bit of advice I gave, you got an internship at Oracle, so that's fantastic. So let's talk about what we do here. So you're putting your education first and foremost. Now, for some companies, this will be important. Some companies will give a lot more preference to certain schools. So if you're not to badmouth University of Windsor, but if you went to the University of Waterloo, that would stand out to some companies more than University of Windsor. Just like down here in the States, if you go to like a Stanford, that's going to stand out way more than like Joe and Bob's Community College, right? It's a very, like, it's a well-known school. It's an established school. People understand and trust the curriculum there. Not to say University of Windsor is bad, because you're able to complete this, you know, you've got a projected graduation date and so on. That's great. So not every company is going to want to see education front and center. You know, you're putting honors and honor roll on there. That's fine. If you've got high enough grades, I would say if your GPA is over like 3.7, put your GPA on here as well. Not just honors and honor roll, but actually list your GPA if it's greater than 3.7. Now, if you're in a country like, I know India, for example, their GPA is on a scale of 1 to 10. So in that case, I would say if it's greater than like 8, then you could put the GPA on a resume. If it's lower than that, I would leave the GPA off the resume and just say honor roll. I think that's fine. I like that you're also giving me skills right away and the technologies that you use. They are supported here. What's interesting though is you're listing a whole bunch of programming languages, but you're not listing their respective technologies first. You actually give me a front-end technology first and foremost. So CSS is like way down here in the list, but you're giving me Bootstrap as a technology like earlier in that list. So if you're going for a Python job, I would probably put Python first, and then I would put Flask and Django as the next things on that list, followed by SQL Alchemy. Where right now, it's like, okay, you know Python, Java, C, C#, C++, but the technology that you know really well is a CSS-based technology. So again, when we read these lists, we read them from left to right in what we sort of build in psychologically as strength order. So what I see on the left, you know better than what I see on the right. So in this case, you know Python better than you know LaTeX, or you know Python better than you know JavaScript. You know Flask better than you know Oracle SQL. And that you know Flask and Django and SQL Alchemy, you know all of that better than Git and Linux. So that's just how we naturally read these things. What I would probably do is so these technologies is you've got frameworks and you've got databases. Unity is kind of also a framework for C#, but then Git, Perforce, and Linux, those are just tools. So I might find a way to like break those out onto 2 different lines maybe, where you're listing like framework tools and then just general technology tools. Like maybe the general one you could list the databases and Git. Working specifically in Linux, I mean, you could call that out if they're looking for specific Linux experience, but if they're looking for a very specific Linux experience, they may want like DevOps level experience. And if you don't have that, I would probably leave Linux off of here. CFilm says you could probably put database on one line. Well, they only know 2 databases. And so putting that on a line by itself, you're going to end up with this, like even more of this big chunk of empty space on the right side. But it would also look weird to start getting into multiple columns here as well. So you'll need to kind of tinker with this a little bit. As much as possible, you want these lines to come across like about 2/3 of the way across the page if possible. But if they only know 2 databases, I mean, granted, well, SQL Alchemy is an ORM, so it's the tool you use to talk to the database. You could maybe put the 3 of these on a line together. But I would still probably list the actual SQL engines and then list SQL Alchemy after that. But it also depends on the role. So for example, if you're applying for a job at Microsoft, Microsoft is going to care a lot more about C#, and they're going to care a lot more about Microsoft SQL Server. You'll want to put those at the front of the list. You want to look like a C# developer that happens to know all these other things. You want to look like somebody who works a lot with Microsoft SQL Server. You happen to know all these other things. So again, when we read these lists, we read them from left to right in our perception of what you know best. So if you're applying for a job where they want C#, you want that stuff at the front of the line. Same thing if you've worked in .NET, you want .NET to be in your list of frameworks. Where right now, if you were applying for a C# role, it's like, okay, well, you know all these other things better than C#, and you know all these other frameworks better than you know Unity, and you don't even list .NET on here. So how much C# do you really know? This is what's going through my mind as a hiring manager as I'm reading this resume. So if I were looking for a C# developer, you'd be like on my maybe later list, maybe. Like I've got a yes pile, I've got a maybe pile, and I've got a no pile. When I'm reading through resumes, I'm looking for a reason to say no. I'm looking for an easy out going, no, I don't want to call this person. So if you can show high relevance to the job, you're more likely to get on the yes list, possibly on the maybe list. If you can show really strong relevance to the role that I have open, then you're more likely to get a phone call. So the projects that you promote, how you talk about the work experience, how you talk about the technologies that you know is what's going to make you stand out on that resume. So try to list primarily what that company's going to care about. So this goes back to a piece of advice I give on the channel a lot, where go build a big resume. Put all your projects, all your technologies, all your jobs, lots of bullet points for every job, lots of projects, lots of bullet points for all your projects. Like just put a ton of stuff on your resume. It's going to be way more than a page. That's okay. Bear with me. When you go and you find a job you want to apply to, you're going to bring that down to 1 page by taking away all the stuff that that company doesn't care about. And that's going to help you bring it back down to 1 page. So now you've targeted them with a specific resume. Also by doing that, then if they've got competition, you can also use that same resume that you've kind of already narrowed down for that technology type and say, this is now my C# resume. And so any job I find where I'm looking for C#, I can use this resume over and over again. If you take the time to build that really big resume, trimming it back down to 1 page by going, nope, I'm going to yeet all this stuff out of here because that company doesn't care about it. Deleting that stuff and bringing it back down to 1 page is going to take you like 5-10 minutes. So keep that really big copy. Don't modify that. Don't make that one smaller. You want to make a copy of that one and then make that one smaller. So once you find a job you want to apply to, you make a copy, make it smaller by trimming out all the stuff that that company doesn't care about. Now you've got a tailored resume just for them. You send them that resume and they're going to look at that and go, look at the high degree of relevance that this person is going to bring to the job. That's what you want to do to get their attention. If you make a generalized resume where you're just listing everything that you possibly know, they're going to look at it and go, okay, you're bringing a lot of value because you know a lot of things, but how much value are you bringing to this specific job where we need you to know specific technologies, like where are the projects that use those technologies? Where are the examples where you've done this exact thing that we're asking for in that job post? And that's where looking at the job post as you're trimming this back down to 1 page is going to be really important. As you network, as you get to know people at those companies, you're going to find out what's important to them, what's more important to them. As you're networking with people at that company, you could say, hey, I've got C# and C++ on my resume. Are one of those more important to the company than the other? They'd be like, oh yeah, C# is used way more at the company. It's like, cool, I'm going to put that on my resume. I'm going to promote that a lot more than C++. So again, as you get to know people at the company, you're going to find a better way to sort of trim this back down to 1 page. But it takes networking, and it takes some research into the company and what's important to the company to know how to make a very targeted resume for them. But it's a lot easier when you get that big resume and you just start trimming stuff out that that company doesn't care about. All right, let's go through the experience here. So this was the internship that you got at Oracle, which is awesome. I would probably put the dates like over on the right side of this same line. So I would put the dates over here. It'll just give you a little more vertical space for other stuff. Created, reviewed, unit tested code for production. So it's good. You're letting me know that you actually got code all the way to production. It's one thing as an intern to be like, yeah, I worked on, some internal projects or whatever, but here you're telling me the impact that I was mentioning earlier, where you want to show the impact that you have. It's like, oh, you know how to put stuff all the way to production. That's way better than somebody coming out of a school or something like that, where it's like, I know how to write code. I've never actually deployed something. You're telling me here, you actually got code ready for production use. Need SQL queries to pull data from a database. That is what SQL is. And because you've listed that technology, this is kind of a given. So again, this is kind of like, this is sort of an expectation. If you tell me you know SQL and you've worked with SQL databases, then I can already make an assumption that you know how to do this. If you've used ORMs and so on, I kind of know that you already know this. You don't really have to call this out explicitly unless they are explicitly asking for it in the job post. Like, we are looking for people who know how to make SQL to get stuff out of the database. Then you could put that on. But I think if you just list the technologies and show this is a project that I made where I'm retrieving stuff from a database, then you don't need to call this out specifically as a bullet point for that job. Independently worked on and finished a project that helped the team keep their data updated. Cool, I would love to see some metrics on that. Like, what kind of data was it? How much data? Are we talking like megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes? Like, how much data was it? How big was the team? How did it help? So it helped the team keep their data updated, but how? You could summarize that a little bit more. Again, it tells me more of the impact that you had at that job. Save the team 50 hours of manual data collection time quarterly. That's amazing. This is exactly the kind of stuff you want to put on a resume. That I made the team better by 50 hours per quarter by doing this work. This is exactly the stuff that you want to put on a resume. So good job on this bullet point. Now, not every job you have, not every internship that you have, and I want to be clear for everybody listening, not every job that you have, you're going to be able to pull a nugget like this out. But if you have the opportunity to have this kind of impact, or just be able to express in some way the actual impact that you had at that job, that stands out so much more on a resume than I did this thing, I also did this thing. But if you say, I did this thing, and this was the impact it had, and this is how it made the team better, this is how it made the company better, this is how I sped this thing up, or how I fixed, so many bugs or whatever, way better. Way, way, way better. Teaching assistant, this is fine to have. So the fact that you're a teaching assistant specifically to these computer science-based classes is really good to have. I would probably put this bullet point above the first one because it shows the impact. Like, I did all this teaching on all these algorithmic classes and I did it for 6 months, as opposed to I did this for 6 semesters consecutively. But then I have to read like what it was that you were a TA for. I would probably put this first line above how long you did it for. Now you did it for 6 semesters consecutively over the span of 2 years. So is that you had 3 semesters per year? It's kind of like the mental math that I'm doing. So I think that it's okay to tell me how long you did it. You've kind of already told me here that you did it. You could just say 6 semesters over 2 years. But the fact that they were consecutive, is that really that important? I don't know. Subsector 3D with a raid. Welcome in, everybody. Doing some resume reviews tonight for folks in chat. Cool. I appreciate the raid. Thank you so much. All right. So projects. You got a Flask website. You got a link to it, which is great. A diary website created using Flask with Python, HTML, Bootstrap. So I like that you're calling out the technologies that you used for that particular project. I think that that's great. And then developed a user login, registration, authentication system. Okay, users log in are able to view, edit diary entries. That's great. This is a good example of how to write up a project kind of thing. You're telling me from a user's perspective what they do. You're telling me the technologies that you used. You gave me a link to the repo. If you happen to have this deployed somewhere, I would love to see a link of where you've actually deployed this. So I can just click on it and be like, okay, let me go interact with it a little bit. If I can experience what you've built, that's more powerful than just saying, hey, I've got this code over here that you can browse, because I don't know whether it works or not. But if you can say, hey, I've also got this deployed, because you told me up here you put stuff in production, so show me how you can put these projects in production. That's sort of reinforcing the skill where you say, I can put code out in the wild. Show me that. Prove it. Go put that online somewhere. Put that link on the resume. And just say, like, experience the app and give me a link over to Heroku or Netlify or wherever, like DigitalOcean, like wherever you're hosting that thing. Let me go experience that live. I think that'd be great. For those that came in on the raid, I am doing a monthly giveaway. So October is my monthly giveaway. I'm going to divert from my resume review here for a moment. So I've got all kinds of fun little kit cards, including Star Trek stuff. Oops. The Enterprise just blew up. So I've got all these cool little kit cards. Some of them are from Fix'em Dude, who you may know from Subsector's channel. And so there's just these little kit cards. So get in on the giveaway. Just do !giveaway. And you're going to get an entry to receive one of these as a gift if you are chosen. And every time I stream, if you combine do bang giveaway to get in on those giveaways, even if you're not picked as a recipient, it's going to give you an entry into the monthly giveaway. And here's one of my monthly giveaway items. I just finished this guy. This is a 4-day print. Let me go over to this screen real quick. This is a 4-day multicolor print. And Mr. Deadpool here is going to be one of our giveaways. So this is about a pound of filament. This is like 1 pound, 2 ounces of filament. It took 4 days to print on the bamboo, and it came out really nice. Like, I'm really, really proud of this print. It came out really beautiful, really great colors and so on. It's got the dark sparkle green from Polymaker. It's got, I think this is one of their Polyterra filaments. This is a Prusament filament on the sword handles. So this is going to be one of the giveaways for the monthly giveaway. Not tonight, but this will be one of the monthly ones. So keep coming by the stream. Get in on those giveaways. We're going to do some other giveaways. It's not the only thing I'm giving away, but that'll be one of the things that we'll be giving away November 1st. So definitely come back and check that out. So definitely do ! giveaway, get in on the giveaway. And I have been having hardware issues, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if DGAG couldn't hear me, but I'm glad that most of you can hear me. I see the audio level bouncing, so I hope that my audio is going out. Cool, so we talked about kind of the projects overall here. I think that these are great. Language and technologies, make sure that that's got a bullet point similar to the other ones. Because up here, for example, you're calling it your technologies kind of here, so you don't really need the second line, but I would probably also add that, like, just make that a bullet point and kind of indent it with the rest of them. And then extracurricular stuff, this stuff is fine. I generally tell people, like, don't put interests on a resume because it can sort of hit on those keywords that I talked about on another resume review where they didn't type out the word JavaScript. And so if someone's looking, searching the database for a JavaScript developer, their resume wouldn't get found. So you need to be careful about saying, like, I'm interested in machine learning, because if I'm going into my database saying I'm looking for somebody that knows machine learning, your resume is going to show up because it hits on those keywords. But then I'm going to look at your resume and go, you don't do machine learning, yeet. I'm going to just delete your resume out of the system, because why are you in there? You're not a machine learning person, so why are you in there? And I'm more likely to just straight delete you out of the system than say, okay, well, you're not a machine learning person, but you do know Python, so if I have a Python role later, maybe. But if I'm searching for things that hit on an interests block on a resume, then it's going to be a problem. So you don't want someone to find your resume and go, you're not what I'm looking for. You don't want them to have that thought. You want them to look at your resume and go, wow, look at the relevance you bring to my job. Look at the relevance you bring to my company. Look at the impact you can come have in my company. That's what you want them to think as they're reading through your resume.